As they say in hockey, let's do that hockey.
Play a full 60 minutes.
Yeah, I'm just trying to keep it simple.
Get pucks deep, bring the puck deep, put pucks in deep. We got to keep it simple and just get pucks going forward.
Getting into the forecheck.
We got to keep playing aggressive.
Trying to take away their time and space.
We're focused on tonight. We just got to stick to our game.
Episode 40 on the Fifth Liners Hockey Podcast. We welcome you back. Our final division preview preseason well underway, and Jake Swanson is back with me, Casey Ditzel, here to go through the Atlantic Division. Jonny Lazarus about to join us coming up as well and give his takes on where this division might go. But Jake, welcome back, buddy. How's it going right now?
It's going great, Case. The Guardians are on a hot streak, about to win the AL Central over the Detroit Tigers. Knock on wood, hopefully. And I've been going to games. I'm going to go up to Ann Arbor this weekend to go see Zach Bryan and John Mayer play. So lots of exciting stuff, but most exciting on the docket, hockey season is here. The Clarkson Golden Knights women's teams start their true season today against Merrimack College. So really excited to see that. And it's lots of exciting news in the air, Ditz.
Well, Clarkson hockey looked pretty dang good in the exhibition. Not sure if you caught any of that, but there is a long list of incoming freshmen that could be making some noise. I don't know, Jake, maybe championship caliber a couple years from now at the NCAA level. Let's raise another banner.
Yeah, figure when you and me both leave, they decide to go all the way, huh?
Dude, I'm telling you, I've been saying it for the last 3 years. It's the Casey Ditzel curse. At least you were there for the men's ECAC and the women's ECAC in 2019. But from when I got there, the men had just won and been to back-to-back ECAC title games. The women had won 3 straight ECACs, back-to-back natties. I show up. We didn't win anything in 6 years. And then now, 1 year removed, they're going to be nasty again. And the guys, not to mention, are number 2 there in the ECAC poll. So, they I guess got a little bit of good juju with me being outside the ropes here, watching in from ESPN. But how about on the topic of the Atlantic Division, Josh Dunn, our buddy, throwing some knucks in the preseason game.
Yeah, with his former teammate Max McHugh, who's a Cleveland Monsters guy, and we were talking about it after the game. They must have planned it or something, because that was really fun to watch. But I mean, the last time I was in Buffalo, I saw Sidney Crosby drop the gloves in a preseason game, so that was a moment to see.
Well, and then next week we've got the Amazon Prime Face-Off series season 2 coming up. I'm not sure if you saw the trailer for that, but I was about ready to drop a shoulder through the wall, just absolutely juiced up. You want to talk about goosebumps? I think when the first season came out, I sat there for all 6 episodes just drooling, like hair raised. Yeah, I cannot wait for season 2. Brady Tkachuk and the Four Nations run. Matt will be back next week with the fantasy hockey episode. I'm hoping I fall right in that 6-7 range so I can pick up my dog. Last year I got the unfortunate number 12 spot. We'll have the draft schedule in order of picks coming up later this weekend for next week's episode. But I cannot. That comes out next Friday, so in perfect fashion, right as fantasy hockey gets started, our draft, right as the hockey season's about to kick off, we've got the Face-Off Prime Series season 2 ready to go.
Yeah, definitely. I think that'll be good. But hey, let's get into this episode, and we've got a really special guest, Jonny Laz. Really good talking to him, and I'm interested to see if his takes, because I think when we were talking to him, his episode for his Atlantic preview hasn't dropped yet, but he gave us some previews into that, and we'll see who comes out on top with our division standings. And I don't know. We'll have to do a little recap at the end of the season to see who did the best.
And just as you said, a little insight into daily face-off in the morning cup of coffee. Jonny Lazarus coming up next. He's going to give us a hint on all of these teams. Jake and I will give our takes when we come back on the other side. Joining us from the car on his way up to Boston, a guy that should be feared this weekend on the ball hockey courts. Bleacher Report content creator and daily face-off host of Morning Cup of Coffee, Jonny Lazarus. Johnny, thanks for hopping on here. How's it going?
Yeah, no problem. Sorry if my service is in and out, but as you just let everybody know, I'm in the car. So, yeah, happy to join you guys and appreciate it. And happy hockey season's back.
It's coming quickly. We're getting ready down here in Greensboro. You're going to be playing with a couple of our owners, which is an exciting thing down here with the Barstool affiliation, and big weekend for them as well, as you're heading up to Chicklets Cup, going to be playing there and defending your title. What's kind of the most exciting piece about that? You've been a part of a couple of those tournaments.
Yeah, this is my third one. My first year I played like roller A and roller B because some buddies I knew from Long Island like needed a guy, so I hopped on 2 teams, which was cool. But 3 for 3 so far. I've won 2 roller A trophies, won a roller B trophy. Back in roller A with Team CCM, my buddy Lucas Georges, who works for CCM, like puts together a team that's like, represented by like Team CCM. So it's sick. We get like free gear. They really hook us up nicely at CCM. And last year we got Grinnell on our team, which is cool, obviously, because he's a good buddy of mine. And hopefully I think he's running it back with us this year. But yeah, I'm excited. It's always a fun weekend, like hanging out with all the guys, seeing Whit, Biz, Colby, Merles. I don't think Jans has been there before. I think this is Jans' first one, so it'll be cool to see him. But it's like a really cool communal feel to it. Buffalo, everyone kind of spends the 2 days around the rinks, getting to know each other, having some drinks, hanging out. And then last year in London, it was like in the middle of the city. So like all these people came and watched, and it was just super cool, like rollerblading through the town. It's like kind of indescribable, honestly, how they do it. It's just like an awesome event. Excited to have it in Boston because Boston's obviously a huge hockey city too. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people coming in and out throughout the weekend. And yeah, it'll be a good time and a good show, hopefully. And I can bet there'll be a lot of good content that comes from it. So excited to see how they recap it after.
Well, you're heading right within our episode topic here in the Atlantic Division and going up to Boston. So I guess a good spot to start is the team that finished last year. The Boston Bruins have to turn it around here, heading into a rebuild and maybe going for the McKenna sweepstakes next year. There's been all kinds of rumors around Kirill Kaprizov. That would probably be a reason to keep Pastrnak around, but you wonder how long he stays. Where do you see the Bruins going from here? Because this year is probably not going to be much better than last year, but how long is that turnaround? Do you think Kaprizov could be a piece they add to try to turn it around a little quicker?
I honestly haven't seen the Kaprizov rumors. So is that like as of today? When did that happen?
That was on the initial list of when they kind of put out the Vegas odds of teams he might go to. They were in the top 3 talked about.
Okay. For Boston, I think, I have them coming in 8th again this year. I think their blue line's fine. Their goaltending's obviously solid with Jeremy Swayman, even though last year was a down year for him. But I just don't know where their goals are going to come from. Their power play, off the top of my head, I think was 29th last year, like 15% or something like that. And I could see them, finishing around the same. Their first unit's probably like McAvoy, Lindholm, Pastrnak, Middlestat, and I don't even know who the 5th person would be. Kind of just thinking about their roster. You guys might have it in front of you. But again, like after Pasta, Geeky probably is the 5th. I don't know if Geeky can sustain what he did last year, having like 30-something goals. But there's a huge drop-off offensively after David Pastrnak. And, you look at their bottom 6, it's honestly a lot of like unrecognizable players. And that's no disrespect to those guys. But, Boston's been one of those teams the last 15 years that's been, talked about as a Stanley Cup contender every single year. And then last year was the first year where things really just went poorly. And I don't see it getting any better this year. And I think, honestly, Casey, in regards to the McKenna sweepstakes, like they may as well just embrace the suck for 1 year. Like you're not going to accomplish anything by making the playoffs. You're not a team that's going to win the Stanley Cup or win a round. You may as well just sacrifice it this year. And I know it's hard to tell guys like Pastrnak, McAvoy, and Swayman, but they have, guys locked up for long term. They have McAvoy, Zadorov, Lindholm on the back end who have signed, pretty long-term deals. You got Pasta locked in. Like, just be bad for 1 year, get some good younger talent in the draft, then go from there. Like, try to speed up this rebuild a little bit, as opposed to, hanging on to your pride and trying to be competitive. So for me, it's going to be a very, very bizarre year in Boston, and I just don't see them finishing above 7th. Maybe they'll be ahead of the Sabres, but if you're asking me where they're going to finish, I think it's 8th place.
Yeah, and Johnny talking about that Boston team from last year as well, and a big piece that got moved at the deadline in Brad Marchand, and going over to the Florida Panthers, kind of flipping the script from 8 to 1. And my biggest question is, can anyone catch the Panthers this year? I mean, again,
regular season or postseason?
Honestly, both, because you got 3 consecutive short summers, you got 2 back-to-back Cup wins. Like, can anyone catch them in the regular season or in the playoffs?
Well, the playoffs are a different story. Florida is a team to me where, I think they finished like 3rd last year in the Atlantic. They've shown like you get in, you're fine. I think Barkov went down this morning too, or yesterday. I saw he was hurt. I don't know what the time frame's looking like with that, but obviously if they're missing Barkov and Tkachuk to start the year, like, it's not a good sign. For Florida, I don't put a lot of stock into the regular season for them. They're a team to me that knows how to flip the switch and when to flip it. Honestly, I did my Atlantic predictions like yesterday, like notes-wise. We haven't done our show on it yet. And I put Florida 4th. Like, I think they'll be a wild card team, but it's not because of, their ability or what they're capable of. To me, it's just like the adversity they'll face, dealing with injuries, dealing with the short summers, like you mentioned, Jake. Like, it's only human nature for guys to get tired. And again, I'm not doubting them. Like, I would still pick Florida to win the Cup. Like, I think they have a very good chance of repeating. But I'm just not putting a lot of stock into the regular season, because, like, as long as they're in a playoff spot, I think they're fine. And I don't think they're going to like sacrifice anyone's, health or whatever to get a 2nd or 1st spot in the Atlantic. I think they're pretty much at the understanding of like, hey, if we get into the playoffs, we're a fucking tough team to beat.
Definitely. And I agree. Just the get in. And I think with the next team we're going to talk about with Toronto, I think that's another thing for them, is they've been getting into the playoffs so consistently over the last couple of years. And then you get the 1st round exits to the Bruins. And then last year you get another playoff exit early. So with Toronto, with the whole Mitch Marner situation, who do you see stepping up for them? We've heard Matthias Michelli as an option. I think he's kind of a good sleeper pick for me for someone who can break out on that top 6. Is there anybody else in that roster you see kind of stepping up and taking that point production?
I'm really curious to see what happens with Easton Cowan. Obviously a big London Knights prospect that Toronto fans have been excited about for quite some time. Like, he should make that team out of camp. Michelli obviously is like one of those guys who will probably fill in the top 6 somewhere. I would think their lines right now are probably like Nyes, Matthews, Michelli, and then like McMahon, Tavares, and Nylander. If you look at the top 6 on Daily Faceoff, that's probably like what it says. But I would probably bump McMahon down to like the 3rd line and put Easton Cowan up there in the top 6. Like, Cowan's a skilled guy that, obviously hasn't shown anything in the NHL yet because he hasn't played, but he's a guy who will thrive playing with top-end talent like Tavares and Nylander or Matthews and Nyes. So I would think that's where he'll fall. And obviously, replacing 100 points from Mitch Marner this year is not something that's easy to do. But that said, like, I do like Toronto's blue line. I think Stolarz is a hell of a goalie who's in a contract year, and this is probably like a big contract for him. He's 31 years old, and this is probably his last chance to sign like that 4 or 5 year big ticket for a goalie. So I think Stolarz is a guy who could potentially be in a Vezina conversation depending on how healthy he remains. I think if he's healthy in that Florida series, it's probably a different story, and that's no discredit to Joseph Woll, but like, Stolarz was the guy. So we'll see. I don't think, again, I'm not like one of those guys who's like Toronto's doomed without Marner and they're going to regret, losing him and all that stuff. Like, yeah, it sucks. It's a hole to fill, but I do think it's a very well-rounded team.
The Sens and the Canadiens made huge boosts last year maybe two teams that could go either way on continuing that progress with young rosters and continuing to add, but also potentially with regression. Do you see either of those teams struggling coming up this year and maybe being prone for a little bit of regression from the success they had last year? Or do you think both teams kind of have the same path, maybe get a little better and towards the playoffs?
I think Montreal gets better. I think Ottawa stays about the same. For me, I just think, Montreal is going to be, they're going to be one of the most fun teams to watch. Just the offensive flair that they have, like, it's kind of basic to say, but like, there's just so many exciting young players there. And I will, like, if they don't finish in the top 3 or top 5 in power play percentage, that's a huge failure. Their top unit is probably Hudson, Demidov, Caulfield, Laine, Suzuki. Maybe Slavkovsky replaces Laine or something, or I don't know. But Laine was one of the better power play guys in the league last year once he joined the Canadiens. But they're just loaded up front. Obviously, adding Dobson's huge. Montembeault has shown, pretty strong runs. He had a great start to the year last year, and fell off a little bit, I feel like, but remained mostly consistent throughout the entire season. And again, like, great coaching in Marty St. Louis, obviously a great fan base. I think Montreal finishes third. I think they're going to have a great regular season. I think Zach Bolduc is a sneaky pickup. Like, I didn't really know who he was, to be honest. And then the Blues came in and played the Rangers last year. He put up 2 goals, and I was like, holy shit, this kid could fly. Like, he's sick. And I watched a lot of him, from there on. I think he had close to like 40 points, maybe even a little bit more in his rookie year. Like, you put him with, I don't know what his line would be, maybe with like Evans and Laine maybe or something, or Demidov, and he'll produce. So I think Bolduc is like a guy who will be like one of those breakout candidates who gets like 60 points. And Montreal is they're just gonna be so fucking fun to watch.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that team is definitely something to look at there. And we've kind of mentioned throughout the episode here of a bunch of rookies that are coming in. I mean, mentioned Demidov for Montreal, Cowan for Toronto. You've also got James Higgins coming up in Boston. Is there anybody in the rookie ranks in this division that you feel like is going to make a big impact, or who do you think is going to have the biggest impact on their team?
Well, Higgins is going back to school. He won't be on Boston this year. But as far as other rookies go in the Atlantic, no one off the top of my head other than those two.
Also had Jacob Fowler as well.
Yeah, Fowler. If Fowler can get, like, I don't know if he'll get Montembeault's job, but like, he's a stud. He really is. And then Fraser Minton maybe in Boston. He's a guy I think a lot of Bruins fans are excited about. But I didn't really touch on Ottawa. Like, one of my hotter takes, I think, for the NHL this year is Drake Batherson scoring 40 goals. Like, I'm a big fan of Batherson's game. He's got a fucking good job. Scores in the dirty areas, too. Like, he's really good around the net. He plays first line, first power play. I think he's put up 8 and 26 in his last 2 years. He trains in the summer with Sid and Nate Marchand. Like, he's a guy who's, like, really dialed. He's a big, strong dude, too. And, Ottawa, again, like, they're a team that has so much talent, top 6, like Batherson, Giroux, Stützle, Tkachuk, Dylan Cousins that you add to the mix. Shane Pinto, I think, will be more of a defensive, lockdown type of forward. That's how he played in that first-round series against Toronto. Like, he really was, like, locked in on Matthews, it felt like. Getting Ullmark fully healthy will obviously really help because he was out for a lot of the year last year. And then Jake Sanderson is a guy who, again, like, everyone's going to watch for after – what felt like a breakout season for him last year, and Shabbat had a really good year as well. So, again, Ottawa's a really good, well-rounded team, and they've got a little FU to their game too. Like, they're going to be fun as well, just a different kind of fun. They're more like heavy skill than Montreal is. Montreal is just like pure talent.
You brought up Buffalo as maybe a team to finish behind Boston. And it seems never ending when Buffalo's trying to chase the playoffs and get any better. Detroit's a little bit closer, but in a bit of the same boat, and the pressure really building on both of those front offices. How much longer for each of those teams? And it sounds like for you, it's definitely not Buffalo this year.
No, I think Buffalo could finish ahead of Detroit. I'm so low on Detroit, it's insane. I just think their blue line is very weak. Like I'm giving Buffalo's top 4D are like nasty, but they're still just trying to figure it all out. I mean, Dahlin, Power, Kesselring now you add to the mix, Bowen Byram. Like that's a pretty solid top four. Yeah, granted those guys aren't like necessarily the biggest, most physical guys, but as far as skating and skill goes, like pretty damn good. I mean, Kesselring's obviously a bigger one, but I think Buffalo is more well-rounded than Detroit. Like Detroit's top six is obviously nasty, but their blue line to me is so weak, and then you never know what you're going to get from John Gibson. Obviously, it's a change of scenery for him, but I'm not going to put all my stock into John Gibson like necessarily being the best goalie in the world. So and again, I'm not trying to like discredit him by any means, but just seems like a question mark in net for Detroit. And UPL obviously is a guy who's like around the same. He's like. He keeps Buffalo competitive, like the guy battles his ass off. Does he put up the best numbers? No, but he's never really been on a great team, so it's hard to blame him. But then again, you have guys like Jack Quinn up front who, is due for a breakout year. Like I think he hasn't even hit the 40-point mark yet, and he's like a top 10 pick in the NHL. So he's a guy who has spent like 2 or 3 years in the league, has had some, transitioning or transforming or adjustments that needed to be made, but this is that year where Jack Quinn has to take that next step. And obviously we know what we're going to get from like Tage Thompson, Alex Tuck, and those guys. But the Jack Quinns and maybe even Zach Benson and if Josh Norris can stay healthy too, like Buffalo, they could finish sixth. I don't think they'll finish in the top 5, but Detroit, to me, their blue line is just going to hold them back.
Is it a 5-team Atlantic playoff again?
Yep, for sure. 1,000%.
And the Chicklets Cup this week. We'll close it off and let you keep driving here. How many goals anticipated for Jonny Lazarus as we get ready for the
pass first guy. Pass first guy. But when the cameras are out, I'm definitely a little bit more selfish. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays because like I don't know what the rink looks like yet. Last year it was kind of like in almost in like a park, and the rink was like very narrow. And it's 3-on-3, so it's kind of like it could be like games like 11-9, like could be very high scoring. I'll set my over under it. We're guaranteed 3 games, so I'll say 7.5.
Yeah.
How different is it the transition from ice to roller? Were you a roller guy?
I play a lot of roller now. Yeah, I played both. I mean, I was mainly ice growing up. Like I started as a roller guy. And then I, became fully iced. Then as I got older, I like went back to roller a little bit because roller is like to me way more fun. Like in this part of life, it's just like super chill and all skill and like guys like kind of know how to play it. Where ice like guys just like whack the puck and people, it's just like a little bit of a different speed. But transitioning from ice to roller is way easier than roller to ice. Because the pace of play in roller is so much slower and so different. Where ice is kind of like go, go, go. And roller is like take it back, set up, stay on your man. It's a much different game, but both are so fun. So it should be a great weekend.
Well, we're wishing you the best of luck. The Florida Panthers of roller hockey. Jake, go ahead there before we close it off.
I was going to say maybe we'll see it down near Columbus in Nasher's new place down in.
I would love to check it out there. Yeah, it looks sick. He's a great guy. I love Nasher. And yeah, the Columbus, the Heat Wave Arena looks unreal. Sorry.
Go Gargoyles. Let them know up in Boston and wishing you the best of luck. The dynasty hopefully can continue. Looking forward to seeing all the clips come out of it.
Thanks, Casey. Thanks, Jake. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks to Jonny Lazarus, and we'll see how he does, Jake, trying to defend that dynasty coming up. Chicklets Cup, I think, as well, getting underway here with the Ryder Cup. Pretty big Friday on the sports side.
Yeah, and did you see the gear that they gave Johnny and like his team? He was talking about how CCM hooks him up, and oh my God, those buckets, what I wouldn't give to wear one of those, man.
You got pretty sweet jerseys too. I'm not sure if that was his ball hockey team or if that's their Chicklets Cup team, but did you see his Instagram post? The red jerseys with the monster on them. Yeah, those are freaking sweet. If you haven't checked it out, go look Jonny Lazarus on Instagram. I'm sure he'll be pumping content out all week. The NHL content creator. That's a sweet job he's got going, and a pretty damn good podcaster on top of that as well. All right, Jake, we've got the Atlantic Division here, and kind of already hinted on just about every team here, but we'll dive in and we'll start with the Florida Panthers, I guess, with just the recent news breaking it. And Jonny kind of broke it to us. We recorded this yesterday with him. And now it's really become official. Alexander Barkov, it sounds like an ACL injury. As of this morning here, Friday, the 26th of September, is undergoing surgery and out for an indefinite amount of time. You got to think, if that's ACL, that could be a season-ending injury for Alexander Barkov, and a huge piece of this Panthers side. Their Selke candidate, their best two-way guy, plays PK and penalty kill, and wears the captaincy. So obviously a massive loss for that. On top of how much momentum they had going into the season, bringing back all three of their big name UFAs. Barkov looks like he might be done.
Yeah, and Casey, kind of looks like they should have kept our boy Nico Sturm, even though he's happy in Minnesota, to get a little PK in there. But yeah, with both Tkachuk now out and now Barkov, I think this is going to be a true test for the back-to-back champions here in the beginning of the season. And Jonny was talking about how he doesn't put too much stock into the regular season as long as they get in. But I think now with these two out, I mean, it's an opportunity for other Atlantic teams to kind of slide into that third divisional spot. And I mean, if you get that wild card 2 spot and end up having to go against the 1 seed, I mean, no playoff matchup is ever easy, but I mean, you want to make it as easy on yourself as you can, especially with injuries and a long season. So definitely a big blow, but I mean, at least for me, they have Sam Bennett who can step into that 1C, and I think he's a totally fine 1C. Like any other team, he would be your first line center, and I think he's going to do well. I think now it's the test of the depth and see what they can do around that top line of Verhaeghe, Bennett, and Reinhart. I mean, you got Marchand moving up to the second line. I think Mackie Samoskevich, I think, is a sneaky guy that not to put out my draft strategy a little bit, but he's somebody I might look out on waivers for after the draft, because I think on the power play and then on that third line could get some really good opportunities early in the season. So definitely that forward core is going to take the hit, but their blue line, I think, is pretty much the same. I think the only difference that they've had is now they've added Jeff Petrie on that third line there. So we'll see how they do. But I mean, Aaron Ekblad, Gustav Forsling, Nico Mikkola, and Seth Jones as that top 4, I'm pretty confident in. I think they'll do a job, especially in the Atlantic. And then, of course, you've got Sergei Bobrovsky in the net. So I think it's going to be a test, but I mean, it's hard to bet against a back-to-back Stanley Cup champion.
Well, you wonder how much Bobrovsky's going to see if they get off to a little bit of a slow start. I don't worry about him too much, I don't think, in the regular season. And it's interesting, the transition we've seen, that really the regular season doesn't matter as much, and it's more health and kind of boosting. And I'm looking, the good news, also credit Jonny Lazarus' company here with Daily Faceoff. They've already got the rosters and line charts updated with Barkov on the IR. That's $10 million of cap space that you think of how the Panthers operate. You just got to wonder who they go out and get. Because it seems like maybe, you look back to last year, and I would say the trade of the century so far in the 2020s, getting Seth Jones on that back end, and not only just to get him as a rental, but on pretty significant term, as Jones is signed through 2030. But now that offers up some more free space with Barkov on the IR. You got Tkachuk on the IR as well. So $20 million or 19.5 between the two of them that are tied up. And I'm right with you. I think you look at Bennett and Lundell being able to step into that. Looks like they're going to move Evan Rodriguez to be a third line center. This top 6 without their top 2 names, you could say, are still a stacked top 6 that is probably among the top 5 in the league still, with Verhaeghe, who's moving up into a top line role. It's Verhaeghe, Bennett, Sam Reinhart. Eetu Luosterainen is probably, if you're talking fantasy, going to get a huge bump here. When you think of the time Barkov missed last year, he was kind of that guy that stepped in on the second line and really saw boosts when Barkov was out. And I love that call on Mackie Samoskevich. I had him last year for the stint that Tkachuk was out, and he's going to be a power play guy. It was unbelievable to think last year in the offseason, or in the postseason rather, that they had guys like Samoskevich, Nico Sturm, and a list of names like that caliber of player that are sitting as healthy scratches for the entirety of the conference finals and the Stanley Cup playoffs, and didn't even need to dive into that depth, where those are they probably had 4 or 5 names that are NHL ready to jump into a Stanley Cup final game and would have no problem doing it. And I just think that's what they're going to have to rely on now. A couple more injuries. Now maybe it starts to become a problem, but for the start of the season right now, I think they can still be a top 3 team easily and work their way to when Tkachuk comes back, if that's in December, and really still make some noise. Just hopefully Barkov's more of a short-term injury than a longer-term. Jake, anything more here on the Panthers as we look forward, or are you kind of all set there? That's really the big news going into this offseason. Actually, one more. I want to get your thoughts on the big 3 that they keep here, because outside of Brad Marchand, who's going to be, I think, 42 years old when that deal finishes up, you look at the core that they've got locked up. Again, all of these guys through 2030, Lundell, Marchand, Verhaeghe, Sam Bennett, Sam Reinhart, Matthew Tkachuk, Alexander Barkov on the offensive side. Defensively, they've got Seth Jones, Aaron Ekblad, and Gus Forsling all tied up for the next 5-6 years. Do you see them wavering at all? Because for me, that core is, maybe Marchand gets hurt and is in and out. You can use that LTIR space. I think this team is going to keep getting better. All these guys are just hitting their prime right now.
Yeah, and you think about the mentorship opportunities too for the young guys coming in. And I mean, if they draft well in the later rounds, because you're not going to get a top 5, top 10 pick with this team, but if you draft well in late round 1 to like the 2nd to 4th round and develop guys in college or juniors, and then put them on a line with someone like Brad Marchand or Eetu Luosterainen or Carter Verhaeghe, like I think the mentorship opportunities here are so great, and you don't have to dive into that depth unless you get a situation here where a couple of the guys go down and then you have an opportunity for those guys. So I think you're right. It just seems like they're going to get better barring any kind of catastrophe that happens. But I think the one thing that I will say is I think Sergei Bobrovsky is probably the one exception to this, where I don't know what kind of option they have in net. I'm not too versed on the Panthers prospects about who they have down in the A or down in juniors. So I think he's the only one that I could see wavering a little bit, just because he's getting on in age. He's been playing pretty much all of the games for this Panthers team for the last 3 years, and he's gone deep into the summer those last 3 years. So I think just making sure that he gets his rest and making sure that he stays healthy is the big thing for me.
We'll move on and stay in Florida on the Tampa Bay Lightning side. Florida finished 1 spot behind the Lightning, and this was the first round matchup, and Florida had no problem clearing Tampa Bay. The Lightning finished with 102 points last season, and I think that maybe came as a surprise to some of us who picked the Lightning to be that first team out, with a lot of the bottom of this Atlantic Division getting stronger and stronger. But the Lightning proved, Jake, they're still here, and they've subtly constructed around the absence of Stamkos. I think Brandon Hagel is really the guy that stepped up last year. And when you think of production, power play time, and power play capabilities, getting things done. But this is, again, still a top 6 that's got all kinds of firepower, so much to the point that they didn't need to sign Ike Howard. They send him out to Edmonton, who's desperate for prospects and desperate for any depth that they can get. And on the side of Tampa, as a prospect, they were threatening if he was going to sign, he was going to spend most of the year in the AHL, because they have the depth that they really don't need to desperately add because they're confident in the group they've got.
Yeah, this just comes from I think I said it last year about Tampa, and it just really comes from that base that they've built over the last, honestly, I'd say 10 years. And from that initial group with Stamkos and Kucherov, like building that up through their cup runs, through their cup wins, and just keeping that culture around the team. And I think we talked a little bit about it with Nico Sturm, who we'll see that interview later in the season, but the culture of a team is so important, especially in the regular season, because you're going through 82 games, and next year you're going to go through more than that. So trying to be a team and be a competitive team through those 82 games, it really depends on health, culture, and production. And I think, honestly, Tampa Bay has been one of the tops in all three of those categories for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years for me. So I don't see any problem with them getting into the playoffs. Now, when it comes to the playoffs, then I think that's where the mentality kind of has to switch, and where the leaders like a Jake Gensel, like a Nikita Kucherov, like a Victor Hedman, like an Andrei Vasilevsky have to step up and really drive home that, hey, we have a lot of talent on this team, but we got to bear down because anything can happen in these playoffs. It's not going to be as easy as a 4-0 sweep every single time. Teams are getting more competitive day by day, and we'll see that throughout all of our predictions. So it's going to be a true test this year for them to see if they can get over the hump and get past the Florida, get past the big teams in the East. So, but yeah, I do like this roster. And I mean, also shout out to that third line in Bjorkstrand and Yanni Gourde. I really like those two together. And Yanni Gourde coming back to Tampa after spending some time in Seattle, I think that's a match made in heaven for Tampa Bay.
Well, it's the whole thought of having to get through the top of this division in Florida. You've also got the Maple Leafs, who have been right there and kind of are the epitome of not being able to get through this division, because before it was the dominance of the Panthers, it was the Tampa Bay Lightning. And you mentioned that concern on Bobrovsky and the age and just the amount he's had to play. We saw that in Vasilevsky. He had the injury a couple years ago, had to sit out through December, came back pretty strong, but not quite enough to get him over the hump in the playoffs. Last year, they're a first-round exit. You think that helps him, a guy who's probably, again, going to go out and play 55 to 63 games in the regular season, but is really, the make or break piece of this Tampa lineup?
Yeah, and I'm pretty much just going to echo what I said about Bobrovsky and just saying, like, hey, if you see him faltering like mid-season, just get him some rest, because come playoff time, he's your guy. He's been to the Cup final. He's won the Cup before. And he's that kind of steadying hand between the pipes that you need to be a Stanley Cup team. So I think I'm not too familiar with their backup in Jonas Johansson or who else they have in the pipeline again. But I think Tampa Bay definitely knows what they need to get deep into the playoffs, and good goaltending is definitely one of those aspects.
The Toronto Maple Leafs have made their money in the regular season, but cannot quite figure it out. And all of a sudden, the core four is no more. Something that we talked about all last season, whether or not Mitch Marner would stay around, if it was worth it for him with all the media pressure and the money available elsewhere. Well, he signs in Vegas, and now the Toronto Maple Leafs, that's just one name that is out the window, but significantly different looking up front when you look at that top six, even with just one piece gone. Now the top line switches up. Matthew Nye is probably a guy who's going to, really step into a big role after he had a huge year last year. But a lot of questions on who that right winger is going to be. They seem to be keeping Tavares and Nylander down as the second line. But somebody's going to have to step up there. Matias Maccelli, probably the top favorite to be that top line right wing guy. But you're also trying to fill in on that second line, whether it's Bobby McMahon, whether it's a Max Domi, who's even been talked about being in that Maccelli spot on the top line right wing, Jake. Lots of question marks for this Leaf team. Do you think that they're still of that caliber without 100+ points from Marner, of being that number one team in the Atlantic Division, putting up close to 110 points in the regular season?
I think this is very close in my mind to the Draisaitl McDavid effect in terms of you have a great player, you have two great players in your top six, honestly three for me, and Tavares, Nylander, or four, Tavares, Nylander, Nyes, Matthews. I mean, Michelli, if he plays with any of them, he's going to see a point production, just because, I mean, Matthews, again, one of the best goal scorers we've seen in our era. And I mean, somebody's got to be passing him the puck. So I think the points go up from there. And I mean, it really doesn't concern me because I know Toronto can do what they can do in the regular season. And it just comes down to, you have guys that you know can score, that you know can produce points, and they're going to do it. I think really for me, it's the defense that concerns me, and the goaltending. I mean, you had Anthony Stolarz, and he's proven to be a really, really good starter for you, and then Joseph Woll as well, hoping to be your future goaltender. But I think that blue line is what concerns me the most, with Morgan Rielly like kind of headlining that. And I mean, you've got McCabe, Tanev, Carlo, Ekman Larson, and Benoit as your other ones in there. So for me, it's a little bit of a shaky top four. So I'm not too concerned about their offense. I really think it's the defense that's going to make or break it for the Toronto Maple Leafs this season.
Johnny talked about goaltending question marks, and another big piece of news coming out in the last couple of days is that Joseph Woll is taking a leave of absence, family-related matter, and not much more information out about that, which, again, you hope that he's all right and his family, whatever situation is going on, is being tended to and is going to be okay on the other side. That leaves Anthony Stolarz, Johnny's pick to kind of be the man here. But Dennis Hildeby as the backup, I watched a couple games, and one of them was a Buffalo Sabres at Maple Leafs game where he got absolutely lit up, and the Leafs had to come back in that one. A John Tavares hat trick, the infamous game where I touched John Tavares. John Tavares' kid held my hand going up the stairs into the intermission without, had no clue who was grabbing my hand from behind, and then he goes on to have a hat trick and win the game for them. But it was a 6-5 victory. There is a lot of question marks in this crease. Do you see, as Johnny does, Stolarz kind of being the weapon that gets the Leafs across the line?
I do, and I think we saw it later in the season last year, where he really stepped up when Woll was having trouble. And I mean, I agree with Hildeby. Like, he's really fun to see on the ice. I mean, big towering presence. What is he, 6'8", 6'9" in the net? And he's just fun to see, but also, if you're that tall, you got to be able to move in the crease, and I don't think he has the mobility as well. So Stolarz, yeah, I think he's got to be the guy, and if he isn't, I just don't know where you turn. So it's kind of like all resting on his shoulders to be a good goaltender for this team. And if he's not, like, if Woll, like, hopefully that he's okay, his family's okay. We always wish him the best. We don't want to see anything bad happen. But if he doesn't come back, who knows? Like, Hildeby as your 1A goaltender going into the playoffs, like, that's not exactly the situation you want to be in.
$1.9 million of cap space for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they defend as the returning division champions. The surprise team of the season, if you were a fifth liners hater, Matt Leonardo. The Ottawa Senators finished number 4. They're the wild card 1 in the Eastern Conference after being pinned 8th in the conference in the Leonardo rankings. 97 points, almost a 100-point team. And the Sens have continued to add a little bit, but for the most part, it's experience in the core group that they bring back. They went out and got Fabian Zetterlund at the deadline. They signed him. They got Dylan Cousins from the Sabres. He's going to be back and growing in the system here. And that top line stays the same. They re-signed Claude Giroux, and we'll see if Linus Ullmark can stay healthy, Jake. But a team I don't know if I'm much higher on than last year. I had them right in that wild card 1 spot in the rankings, but I think they're going to be a threat again, and I could see them. If the Panthers come out real slow, they could be a team that middles on that 3-4 side. I think again, pretty unanimously, we think that the Metro is a weak division, so the Atlantic is widely up for grabs here if you can be a top 5 out of 8 team, and I see Ottawa fitting maybe in that same mold this year.
Yeah, I really do. And I agree. I think the additions of Dylan Cousins, I really like Fabian Zetterlund, one of Matt's San Jose Sharks from last year. And I mean, I see a lot of growth for this team as well. I mean, you got a veteran presence in Claude Giroux. You've got Brady Tkachuk, who, as much as he is that power forward that's get in your face and really physical, he can score too. And then you've got Tim Stützle, who is one of the best international players still, and I think he's going to be really good in the Olympics for Team Germany. So I think you've got a lot of combination of power, speed, and point scoring. But yeah, I think, again, really a lot of these Atlantic teams, for me, it really comes down to the defense and to the goaltending. And I can see a lot of high-scoring games between a lot of these teams, but if you don't have a blue line that can support you or a goaltender that's good between the pipes, you're not going to get very far in the playoffs. So I think really looking for Sanderson, Zub, Shabbat, Jensen to take that next kind of step for Ottawa. And then, of course, Ullmark, who you gave that big contract to, and Merrill backing him up. And you had last year Anton Forsberg, who was a really good backup goaltender. I mean, at one point, I think he was like leading the league in shutouts early in the season. So kind of a tough one to let him go. But Ullmark, again, he's a really good goaltender. I hope he bounces back from a kind of a middling year for him. It's better than most goaltenders will do, but I think him bouncing back is going to be huge. So I'm not worried too much about the offense. I think I agree with Johnny when he was saying Drake Batherson's going to put up a lot of points this year. So I think he's going to do well. I think Dylan Cousins in his first full season in Ottawa should do well. But going forward, I think it's going to be an interesting team to watch, and one that could really, to me, be in the second spot for this division. I think I wouldn't be surprised if they snuck in there.
Drake Batherson's a guy I've had fantasy eyes on for a couple years. I picked him up off waivers 2 years ago in my league, and and like Johnny said, he's a goal scorer. He picks up big time points, and on a Sens roster that is top 6 heavy, something that's pretty important. Last year, and this is good news, obviously, for him, he was kind of mixed in with, he was on that 2018 Canada team, and there was rumors everybody on that team could get suspended. He was one of the ones that, had question marks around where his draft capital tanked to. And I can't remember who had him in our league, but that ended up being a huge value pick because it was only 5 guys that were put on, that ended up being in the trial and got suspended. He's not one of them. And he is a phenomenal player. We've seen his sister play plenty down at St. Lawrence, Jake, and I'm excited to be all over that draft stock as well on Drake Batherson. Unfortunately, Johnny soiled the boat on that because, I guess, fortunately and unfortunately, you know about it. But hopefully, our compadres don't listen into the episode until post draft, which is coming up next Tuesday. But if we're talking fantasy, Brady Tkachuk, I gotta pump it again, is the ultimate fantasy guy for our format. And this is where Matt and I butt heads hard. I think the best all-around player in hockey. He's going to put up 5 shots on goal. He's going to score a few goals, maybe get some assists, more of a goal guy. But then you add on that he hits 5 to 7 times a game. The way our format works, incorporating everything between shots, points, hits, blocks, Brady Tkachuk is the man, and I hope I'm in that middle tier, because if you're in the one, you got to go on the McDavid, McKinnon, Draisaitl side. Draisaitl's dropped pretty hard in the rankings, but Brady Tkachuk is heftily high on my list. We'll save a lot of this talk for next week, though, but we move on to the Montreal Canadiens, Jake, a team you're very excited about, and especially on the rookie side with Ivan Demidov stepping into this lineup. All kinds of powerful offensive potential here. And not only that, a very young team, plenty of cap space to work with over $4.5 million right now going into the season.
Yeah, and I mean, this whole team really excites me. As you can tell, I'm repping the Montreal Victoire of the PWHL and hoping they have a good season. But this team, I really like their depth a lot. I mean, you've got Caulfield, Suzuki as your top guys. You got Line as a really good special teams guy. Demidov is a really exciting rookie. You got Juraj Slafkovsky, who one of your top end picks that you really hope steps it up this year and becomes what you drafted him to be, and Kirby Dack as well as a 2C. I mean, that top six alone really excites me about their goal scoring potential, their potential in general. But you look at their bottom six, Zach Bolduc, who's someone that Johnny pumped the tires of in that interview. He really likes him. Alex Newhook, I really like as well. Oliver Kapanen. Then you got Gallagher, Evans, and Anderson on that fourth line. And that's not a fourth line to sneeze at either. Like, that's not just go out and grind, like, fourth line, like, go get some body checks. Like, they can score. So I really like this whole offensive core. And then you turn it over to the defense. I mean, Lane Hudson as your rookie of the year last year. And you've got Caden Gooley, you've got Noah Dobson, who you just traded for. Mike Matheson has always been a top four guy. And then you've got the man who gets into so many fights in Arbor Jacki, and then Alexander Carrier, who's a proven top six guy. So I really like this whole team. I think Montembeault and Dobesh will be a good enough tandem for them. But I think if they go out, score the puck, and do what they do best, I think this is going to be a very scary Canadiens team come playoff time.
Do you have any thoughts on the addition of Patrick Laine? And Johnny said he feels he could be a power play one guy. He showed flares of being the man and being kind of back to some of the star talent that we saw in Winnipeg back now about 8 years ago, almost a decade closing in 2016, 17, 17, 18 when he was a 70-point player. Last year, just 33 points. He appeared in 52 games. He hasn't played more than 60 games since the 1920 season pre-COVID when he was on the Jets. He played 68 in that, has not appeared in a full season, or for that matter, over 70 games since the year prior to that in 18-19. So it's been a while since he's been a consistently relevant player. What do the Canadiens need out of Laine to step up in that offense and maybe step into a leadership role, a guy who's probably going to be among that Olympic team headed to Italy playing for Finland coming up this next year?
Yeah, I think it's really going to be keeping him healthy and keeping him on the lines that make him the most productive. And I think that's going to be a kind of a feel out thing for Marty St. Louis in Montreal. And I think starting him on the second line is probably good. I mean, you've got him along Dak and Demidov, so you've got a proven center who's pretty good in this league, and then you've got the rookie superstar who's a lot of hopes are pinned on. So I think St. Louis is kind of hoping that he can be kind of that calming veteran presence. He's been in the league for about a decade now, so he knows how the NHL works. But I mean, honestly, I think a lot of the health concerns and a lot of his absence wasn't his fault. He did have a lot of the stuff with the player assistance program earlier, and really wasn't able to start his tenure in Montreal well after coming from Columbus. So I think there's a lot there where this feels like a new beginning for him. And I think Montreal is a really good hockey town to be in to rejuvenate that career. You come from Columbus, who very passionate fan base, but a small market. You've got Winnipeg, who just kind of restarted that franchise when he was there. So they were still kind of on the up and up. So I think Montreal, and being that hockey town and being that culture that has just loved hockey since its inception, I think could be really, really good for him. But I think they just need to get him in the right spots and he'll produce. I mean, he is a talent and a really talented scorer at that.
Boston Bruins quickly went first to worst. We'll save them for the end because that's a team that's now in full rebuild and pretty exclusively agreed not going to be contending for one of these wild card spots. But really, up into last year, the Bruins were considered a mighty playoff force. Now Marchand shipped out, and the Bruins are looking towards the future here. But prior to this season and into the previous seasons, the race was between the Senators and Canadiens, who we just talked about. They made it last year, and the Red Wings and the Sabres, who still seem quite a ways away. The Red Wings were closer than the Sabres last year. The Canadiens finished at 91 points and were the cutoff on the Eastern Conference side. The Red Wings 5 points behind that and really fell off because they were well within contention and within a playoff spot going into January in closing. I think it was January that they had the big losing streak into February. And all of a sudden, the rug's pulled out. Lalonde gets fired, and now they bring in a new coaching staff here. The pressure is really on when you think about the Detroit Red Wings and the Yzer plan and having to get going, Jake. Johnny said this is a team that he thinks is farther away than the Sabres, who I think are my bottom team in the conference this year. They've got the offensive power when you think about the top six of guys like Lucas Raymond, Dylan Larkin, Alex DeBrincat, Patrick Kane, still, relevant and making plays. But aside from that, there are some serious holes in this Red Wings offense. And it makes you think if they're going to have to kind of go back towards a rebuild to get to relevance looking to the future.
Yeah, and I don't see this team making the playoffs this year at all. I think barring a Patrick Kane kind of rejuvenance from his Blackhawks days, I don't see this team really making a big push. And it's really just the depth of the blue line. I think Mo Seider is one of the only guys on that blue line that has proven himself to be a top 2 guy, a top 4 guy. Ben Sherratt, Albert Johansson, Jacob Bernard-Docker, Eric Gustafsson, Justin Holl. I mean, those guys, they may be NHL caliber defensemen, but I don't see them on the same level as a Seider. And I think he needs at least one other guy to help him out on that blue line to kind of be the 1B to his 1A. So, and then of course, adding in John Gibson in between the pipes. As an Anaheim fan, I've seen Gibby do what he does for years now, and he's always been the trade rumor, the one that's going to net us a haul, and he didn't really get us much. And that's because he's aging and he just isn't the goaltender who he once was. And if people thought he was kind of the product of a bad blue line in Anaheim, well, I got news to tell you. He's not going to fare much better in Detroit with this blue line. So I think their offense is definitely there. I like Raymond, Larkin, Kane, DeBrincat. I think they've got some really talented players. And then, even the bottom six, like a JT Compher, Elmer Soderblom, Mason Appleton, I think they've got some depth there, but I don't see the defense or the goaltending for this team to make a significant playoff push here.
What does Gibson bring to this lineup coming from Anaheim? You said the aging is a question, the injury concerns obviously up front, but on a positive side, do you see him having the ability to be a difference maker?
I do, and he is one of the best goaltenders Anaheim has had probably since Jean-Sebastien Giguère. And J.S. Giguère was my favorite hockey player of all time before I got to Clarkson, and he kind of emulated that just energy when he was first in the Anaheim Ducks lineup. So I think his experience is going to be a plus. His talent, he is still a very talented goaltender when he gets on the ice, and he can make saves that a lot of people just would write off his goals. So I think he's definitely going to be a nice change of pace for Detroit, kind of going from that 2 goaltender system that they've had for a couple of years now. They haven't really had a stable goaltender in Detroit for the last couple of years. I mean, Cam Talbot tried to be that last year, and he'll still be there. They've had like Alex Lyon. They tried out Jack Campbell in the A. Like, there's been a lot of like rotating goalies in there. So I think Gibson at least gives you a true and tried starter, so that they don't have to go with the split time with goaltenders. And that does help out a team as well, as you know the goaltender's tendencies, you know what he can save, what he can't. And it really does give you a sense of just comfort that it's going to be the same guy in net for the majority of the games.
On the Buffalo side, Johnny talked about his confidence in the defensive core. I am worried about Buffalo. They, in my opinion, one of the more disappointing off seasons here, with some cap space to work with, some trades they made leading up to the deadline. And you think about names going elsewhere. JJ Peterka, obviously a huge one that happened in the offseason. They bring in Josh Doan and they bring in Michael Kesselring, both guys that are teetering NHL players. Kesselring, a much higher upside so far than Josh Doan, who's a rookie. But Doan played most of the year in the AHL. He's going to have to be a piece of this third line, maybe fourth line of the Sabres side. You got guys that need to step up, like Peyton Krebs, who's been an AHLer for most of his career. Beck Malenstein is going to have to be a consistent piece in this lineup. And then you have to overcome injuries with guys like Jack Quinn, who's been kind of in and out. Josh Norris, really the huge piece that they went out and added, who's going to be, it looks like a top line center in between Zach Benson and Tage Thompson. He's extremely injury prone when you think of his time in Ottawa. For me, there's huge questions on this Buffalo side. And I think it goes back to just questionable decisions on the trades, because now Dylan Cousins, who was a huge piece of this lineup and was, the future prospect, thinking about fantasy drafts last year, a guy that even on the NHL media level, they were saying to go out and grab because he's going to have a huge year. They ship him away, and the pieces they got back, Norris was the big one, but also Bernard Docker, who we just talked about on the Red Wings, they let him walk for free. If you're not going to sign him, why would you go get him? And two, why would you let him walk without trading him for at least a late round draft pick to take a flyer on? And that's a huge question mark. Then they go out and get rid of Peterka. They just cannot get these big name guys to stay. And you need that for growth and development. You think about where the Montreal Canadiens have gotten to. A lot of that is on those key young pieces that want to be around and want to stay there. Cole Caulfields, Nick Suzuki's. It's something that Buffalo is missing outside of Tage Thompson and Alex Tuck, who are and Rasmus Dahlin, who are the core pieces here. But Jake, I just worry about even to the defensive side. Like Owen Power is a guy that they went out early. They went and made an aggressive signing on. But for me, it has not paid up to an $8.35 million deal. And granted, they've got him till 2030, where maybe 5 years from now, that's a steal. But as of right now, he's not an $8.35 million defenseman. And Bowen Byram signed for a couple more years, was active in the offseason and not wanting to be there. You need to find more pieces that want to be there, but are going to contribute at the level that they're valued at if they're going to be a team that can turn it around and make the postseason.
Yeah, and I think you just found the Buffalo GM's just dilemma that he's been going through the last 3, 4, 5 years. And it all comes down to, is Buffalo really a market that you want to play in as a hockey player? And I know it's definitely more up and coming with the Bills being better. And I think it's just so hard to get people that want to be there, but also want to take a pay cut to be there, to keep a good team around your core players. And I'm not sure Buffalo really can do that right now. They haven't done anything with their homegrown talent, like you said. They haven't won much in the last 5-10 years. And it really is tough for a team that on a downswing, you don't really have a lot of things to sway players to come to you with. And it kind of reminds me a little funnily of like college football video game of like when you're trying to recruit players and there's those stats when you're trying to recruit of like your academic success and your location and like that kind of stuff where you can't change that. It's kind of similar to Buffalo. You can't change where the franchise is. You can't change the history of losing recently, and you can't change like the tax rates in New York, like that kind of stuff. So it really is tough for me. And you compared like to Montreal, how they've kept the homegrown talent. I mean, that is one of the original 6 teams. That's a team that you grew up watching. Buffalo, it's really hard to. I mean, for us being New York natives, we know all about the Sabres and all their history, and we grew up watching those games. And you especially.
Neither of us are Sabres fans, so that proves it right there.
Exactly. And I mean, especially you being so close in Rochester with their AHL team, like I think it's just so hard to find players that want to play for a pay cut in a city that just hasn't won yet. But I think if they have a breakout season for some of these homegrown kids, I think that's what's going to push them over, at where you can say, like, if a Zach Benson comes out, rips 60, 70 points this year, and he's a guy that you want to build around, or you see a guy from the A come up, like a Quinnipiac guy and Zach Metza. I really like seeing him play for the Amerks and see him come up and be a stud top 2 defenseman. I think that's what you need, is have some of these guys, even if your team is not doing well, prove that you have pieces that you can build around, because that makes the guys want to go. Because it kind of like Chicago, for example, you have a Connor Bedard who is a franchise level guy. They were able to entice some of those older free agents to come and play with him because they're like, hey, this kid is it, and he's someone that you want to play around. So I think Buffalo has to do something similar to that for them to even be sniffing playoff contention next year.
And I think a guy like Josh Dunn is something they almost need, and not to pump, tires of a guy on the wall behind us and one of our buddies and friend of the show, but there was criticism around things like the grit of the team, where Tage Thompson gets knocked out on the ice and nobody fights the guy who hit him, whether it was intentional or not. Josh Dunn's a guy that is absolutely nails. We saw him in COVID try to go over the glass, and was it Metza? It might have been Metza.
It might have been Metza.
Yeah. But pieces like that you need a little bit of a tooth and nails on your fourth line. I think if you're the Sabres team that's young and needs to find an identity, pieces like that, maybe on a couple call ups or give him a fourth line right wing spot and move some pieces around him. I'd like to see, obviously, as a buddy of ours, but I think he would be a big piece. Last team in the Atlantic is the Boston Bruins. Marco Sturm coming in as the new head coach. I think that's a big piece for the future. A guy who can groom younger talent. They're going to need a lot of it coming into Boston coming up. Also in the reports this offseason, exploring trade offers, and especially in the forward core. This is something I posed to Johnny, and he said maybe not necessarily something he's heard as a legitimate threat, but Kirill Kaprizov could be a huge piece on a team that's throwing away cap space and is going to have plenty of it coming up. James Hagen's a guy for the future that you like, Jake. But, I wonder if the worry would go the other way. I wonder if Pasternak's a guy that they got to look at moving, if they're going to embrace the rebuild, and Johnny talked about embrace the suck for a year. Are guys like Pasternak and Charlie McAvoy pieces that, are key franchise pieces, or have been when this team was threatening over the last decade or longer? Are those guys that you think you need to move to get that huge return on a load of 3 years worth of first round picks, or a key forward like a Kirill Kaprizov, who I don't know that's where he's going to want to go to sign, and only with 1 year left on his deal. I don't know that's if that was the way I was approaching it as a general manager, would not trade those assets to bring him in, because he definitely wants to see a future for success where he's going to sign. What do you do if you're the GM here of the Bruins?
I think that you just outlined the catch-22 perfectly there, Ditz. I mean, you got to have enough to want a guy like Kaprizov to stay. And if you move a Pasternak or a McAvoy, I mean, you're taking away two of his best weapons. And I think it's so tough to see that, because short term, you want to bring that guy in no matter what. But are we going to see another situation like a Mikko Rantanen, where Carolina goes out and gets him, and then he doesn't want to sign the extension, so they have to ship him out? So I think short term, it would be great for the Bruins just to, one, sell some tickets, and two, stay competitive in a very competitive Atlantic. But on the other end, for the long term, you've got guys like a James Higgins who's coming out of college next year, and you've got some guys in the system that are ready to make the jump to the NHL in the next couple of months, maybe couple of years. So are you going to wait and embrace the suck and say, hey, sorry, David, sorry, Charlie, sorry, Jeremy, like, we love you guys. You guys are our franchise cornerstones, but we need time to figure this out. Are you going to do that? Or are you going to grant their wishes, maybe, if they're coming to you trade deadline day saying, hey, I'm going to hold out for more money, or I'm not going to sign the next contract that comes my way if you don't move me to a contender right now? It's really tough to see if they're going to do that, but I think this year it's going to be kind of a stagnant year for the Bruins, for me personally. I don't see them making huge moves. I could maybe see like a Pavel Zacha or a Casey Middlestat going out somewhere, just because they could be trade deadline acquisitions for a team trying to make a playoff push. But for me, I don't think they're going to find an offer that suits them for a Pasternak or a McAvoy to go out and trade them. And we talked about this before with, like, if McDavid's going to get traded if he doesn't sign the extension, like, trying to find the assets to build up and the cap space to get one of these guys, really tough. And then you factor in, like, oh, Pasta's going to want an extension. McAvoy's, I think he already is on an extension. And do we have enough money to make that work? So,
and the good news is they don't really have to worry about any of those three pieces. All of them are signed through 2030. So
okay.
It would be more if they're, well, one, if the player's unhappy, and two, if they're looking to, go out and get moved. I think the good news is, especially in McAvoy and Pasternak, with them wearing the letters, you probably could assume they like being there. But Marchand was thought about the same. I guess a little different situation in a pending UFA, and he did want to go back. It was not his decision ultimately to leave. He was kind of forced into that by the Bruins not wanting to give him what he wanted, which even becomes, what the heck were they thinking there? Not giving him a $6 million deal to stay when they're gonna be terrible coming up here. And I think you hit it too as well, really well, with they have plenty of trade pieces here. When you think about the deadline, it doesn't have to be those core guys. They went out and signed and did well in getting guys like Victor Arvidsson, who could easily be a playoff piece on a team that needs a forward. Casey Middlestat has been moved at the deadline now almost 3 years straight. Tanner Jeannot signed long term, but if someone wants a big bruiser, he could be somebody that you look to put on the move.
Zadorov would be another one that I would point to.
Maybe right, but I just don't think that the decor is anywhere close, and the Bruins probably have a long way to go. And I think my worry would almost be closer to that 2030 year. All three of those guys come up UFA. If you haven't got back to it or close to it by then, I think that's your timeline. I think by the time you're in the last couple years of those deals, you got to be relevant to keep those big pieces around. Time to do some predicting, Jake, and let's look quickly back at last year. You weren't a piece of this show, but in the Atlantic, I'll give Matt. I'll go first. Neither of ours were very good. We did hit the middle pretty well, but I got to pump that my Ottawa Senators were a piece of my call. Unfortunately, the standings went wrong very quickly, starting at number one. The team I had as a unanimous division leader was the Boston Bruins, and they finished DFL last place, number 8. And the Bruins did not get the Y next to their name as the division champs. However, after that was pretty hot in Toronto, Florida, Tampa Bay, all in order. And then the Ottawa Senators and Montreal Canadiens. I just had Montreal out of that wild card race because of Boston. And then I went Detroit, Buffalo. So I guess actually, Jake, I was somewhat 7 for 8. Unfortunately, everybody was off by a spot, but I did have the order correct, excluding the team that went first to worst. Matt's side also fairly close. He went Toronto, then Boston, then Florida, and got all kinds of out of whack with Detroit, then Tampa. Out of the playoffs, put Montreal and Buffalo, and his last place team that did well better than that, the Brady Tkachuk-led Ottawa Senators. Here we go. We look forward to 2025-26, buddy, and our final division preview here, looking at the stand. You want it first or you want me to go?
How about you go first? Because I'm just finishing mine. Because
all right.
I almost forgot.
I am going to. I think the top of this division is going to be a little bit fluid, but I think you still have some. I think more of the problem in this division is that it's going to be impossible to get through come playoff time. I don't mind the Maple Leafs as a threat to go back to the top of this division here. And I think the Leafs maybe have some growing pains early, but those are my unanimous top 2. And I think the Panthers come in the top 3 as well. I'm gonna take a flyer and say it's the Lightning who come out and finish number 1 in this division. The Leafs right behind them, and the Panthers nipping at their heels. I don't think the Panthers are going to have any problem putting up points. You know, they've got the injury concerns, injury questions. I think they could still kind of roll into it. It's just a question of whether or not there's a little bit of that cup hangover to start. Give me them at number 3, just as they were last year, and I think could easily roll on to the Stanley Cup playoffs once again for a 4th straight year. I'll take the Montreal Canadiens. Now, give me the Ottawa Senators. Senators 5, Canadiens 6. Nope, sorry, 4. Senators 4, Canadiens 5. Those are the wild card teams. It's going to be the exact same playoff as last year. The Red. I don't even know how I want to take these 3 teams. These 3 teams are going to be far off the pace, I think. I'll say the Sabres get a little bit of life. They're always good for a 1-month hot streak, right, Jake? Mm-hmm. We'll just see if they can get off the rails in October a little quicker than they have in past years. Give me the Sabres as the 6th team, first team out, then Red Wings, and then Bruins. I'm interested to see how the Sabres do for Kevin Adams' sake in the GM spot. We might be having Jarmo Kekalainen, another Clarkson guy, back in the GM seat by the end of this season.
Yeah, so I don't differ on the teams that get in, but I differ on the order, definitely. So for me, I think Toronto's going to come in number 1. I don't think they're going to feel the loss of Marner that much. I think, like I said, their offense is good enough with Matthews, Nyes, Nylander, Tavares in that top 6. So I see them doing pretty well in this division. Now here's where it gets a little funky for me, but I think it's a good shout. I'm going to take Montreal in my 2. I think they could be the surprise of the NHL this year, and I think they could be a sneaky contender to go pretty far in the playoffs, but I think their regular season is going to be well as long as they stay healthy and as long as Montembeault can kind of find his flow. I think they've got a good enough backup in Dobesh, and I think they've got some really good young talent that can step up this year. Number 3 for me is going to be Tampa. I think, again, they're just their base in their everything that they do, their culture, their production. I think it's just been good for years, and I don't see it wavering now. Number 4, and in my first wildcard spot, I have the Panthers. So I think if you talked to me yesterday, I think I would have flipped them in Tampa. But now with Barkov out for probably an extended period of time, I think them trying to find their flow in the early goings of the season might be a little bit tougher without two of their best point producers and one of their best two-way forwards. So I think that's going to come back to bite them a little bit in terms of seeding. But again, I agree with you. I agree with Johnny. I don't think there's any way that they miss the playoffs this year. I think it's just a matter of where they come. Like if they come in first or if they come in a wild card spot, I think they're going to go on a run. So it really just matters to them to get there. And then number 5 in my second wild card spot, I have the Senators. So Sens, I agree with you. I think they're a really good team. I just think the 4 above them are a little bit more suited for the regular season. And I think Ottawa really bears down towards the end of the season. I was a little bit shaky on them early last year, so I'm kind of expecting the same, but I agree. I think betting against someone like a Brady Tkachuk and a Tim Stützle, like, you're wrong. You can't. And we love our boy Matty, but sometimes his takes are a little personal. So, but yeah, and then I have Buffalo as my 6. I agree with you there. I think they get some life, they get a little bit of a run, and they can't quite make it into the playoffs just because they face some West Coast teams that are in the hunt, and you face some interdivision rivals that want to kind of beat you down. So have them at 6. I have Boston as my 7. I think as much as everybody wants them to come in last this year, they're still a good team. They still have a lot of talent around them. I don't think they're going to be bottom feeders like a San Jose, like an Anaheim, like a Chicago. I think they still have enough firepower between Pasternak, McAvoy, Morgan Geekie. I mean, they have Jeremy Swayman. They have pieces to win games. Can they put it all together? Probably not, but we'll see how it goes. And then I have Detroit in my last. And this is not a slight to Tigers fans, even though my guards overcame a 15.5 game deficit. Don't worry about it. But
slight bump, no big deal. No big deal.
Yeah. But I don't see, like I said, that blue line besides Mo Seider, I don't see them doing very well. And as much as I love Gibby, I think it's going to be another season of him playing behind a blue line that just doesn't give him much help. So I think their offense will definitely win them games early in the season, but I don't know where they go from here if Yzerman needs to rebuild again. I think they've got some really good prospects. Sandy Palika, I think, is another one that could come up and help in the later years, but I don't see them doing well this year.
I hate to say it too. If that's what needs to happen, it's not going to be Yzerman who's rebuilding again.
Yeah.
But a couple of GMs probably with some heat on their seat, buddy. A big weekend coming up for you. Guards games. You were there last night, no?
Yeah, I was, and it was
again tonight.
I am, and hopefully it's better. But it was the first game we've lost to the Tigers in the last 2 weeks, so I'll take it. And now we take on the Rangers, and I think we just need to win 2. And for Detroit to keep losing in Boston. So hopefully that happens, but I'm excited. Should be a good one.
And then a big show going on as well at the big house.
I know. Zach Bryan, John Mayer are the headliners, and John Mayer, one of my favorite guitarists of all time, so that should be a fun show. And as much as controversial headlines as Zach Bryan has brought, his music is still really good to me. So excited to hear him live, and I think it's going to be a good experience.
I got a pretty cool one coming up, a career check mark. I always said, watching TED Talks and stuff, I always said, I wish someday I could be a motivational speaker. How about this? They've asked Casey Ditzel to come and speak to kids at Career Day about motivational career advice. So I'm like, oh, this is great. I got, I'll talk about going through college and struggling. Guess the age range that I'm speaking to for a motivational speech.
Oh boy, what is it?
Kindergarten through 8th grade. So then I'm like, okay, well, now I'm in one because 8th graders and kindergartners are in 2 completely different spots when you want to talk about career advice. So I was there this morning, and we had they had a career fair, and we had this big blow up slap shot cage, and no big deal. Kind of the popular kid at the school right here, Jake.
There you go.
First time that's ever happened. But now I got to go talk to him about, I asked everybody, I said, all right, what's your name? What do you want to be when you grow up?
Mhm.
And I got some pretty cool answers. I had someone wants to be a unicorn. I'm like, that is dope.
Yeah.
I've never thought about that. That would be sweet. I had plenty of police officers, army, construction workers. These are,
some blue collar kids right there.
You're gonna be a hero, right?
Yeah.
It was like, I mean, when I was a kid, I wanted to probably
be
go
an
roll in
astronaut.
mud. But so I'm talking about, in broadcasting, we give the keys to the game, right, buddy? That was the big thing. The 3 keys. Casey, I'm giving my speech on Casey's keys to dreaming big, about big dreams. If you want a little insight here, the 3 keys to big dreams. Hard work.
Okay.
Hard work, positive attitude,
Okay.
and being a nice person, being kind to others.
Wow.
So, something to work on for the weekend. Be a good person, have a good attitude, have a great day, and work hard.
Man, honestly, I think you would have gotten their attention just as well if you brought in some hockey sticks and jerseys. But that's just my opinion. It's okay.
Well, I got it. They want it to be 30 minutes. I can't chuck jerseys for 30 minutes.
Oh,
that's the other
man.
thing. I got to engage kindergartners.
I know
for a half hour here.
Wow. Teachers have a hard time doing that, let alone, my God. Well, glad to hear that you're on the up and up, Casey. And oh boy, I can't wait to hear one of those kids in the future, like 20 years down the road, be like, hey, I remember Mr. Ditzel coming in and talking about his broadcasting, and now I'm a broadcaster. I'm sure, honestly, I'm locking in the bet right now that some kid's going to do that.
The over-under, I hope I can hit that one. There's going to be about 750 kids. The over-under at 0.5. I want to be a broadcaster someday after. I guess that would be a great way to gauge if it was a successful start to my motivational speaking career. We'll stay tuned. Next week, Jake, the fantasy hockey season is underway. Pump up my tires right now. My reign of terror is incoming here. The Ditzy's Dogs franchise back and ferocious. I'm hungry, and I'm coming in with a plan, a backup plan, a tertiary plan, and maybe 4 or 5 extra plans.
I didn't know you knew that word.
I'm not getting thrown off my game this year. Nobody's surprising me. I have expectations that everybody has the same plan as me, and I'm going to be ready. I'm going to be ready next week. And I'm going to be motivated. I'm coming in with a positive attitude. I'm manifesting it this year. I'm working hard. I'm in the ditches doing my research here, and I probably won't be that good of a person because I gotta put a few people down when we're in the draft.
Oh man!
But up until then, I'll try to greet everybody with a smile.
You go.
It's hard not to smile.
Insert the clips of Ditz like literally head down on his desk last year when his plan didn't come to fruition.
This is a great to my point when we're talking about the law of attraction, thinking what you want, manifesting what you want. Last year, it was done. Night 1, my season was over. Not this year. Not this year, Jake. I'm coming in ready, buddy. 40 episodes up and down. Next one is 41. Unfortunately for the league, Jake's lucky number. He informed me before we started recording, but crazy to think about here, buddy. 40 episodes.
Wow.
We're cooking. I was told that all 95% of podcasts fail before episode 12. Multiply that by
3.5.
There you go. 3.5. We're going to keep going, though. We're going to get 4, 5, 25.
Yeah.
We'll do it. Fifth Liners Hockey Podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe out on YouTube and Spotify where we stream. Also, short clips coming on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Fifth Liners Pod on the social platforms. He's Jake Swanson. I'm Casey Ditzel. Thanks for tuning in, talking Atlantic hockey, fantasy hockey, right around the corner and up next week, coming out next Wednesday. Jake, have a good one. Have a good weekend. Until we see everybody next time, have a good one, everybody.